The galaxy had rules. Hyperspace lanes curved like invisible rivers through the void. Navicomputers calculated impossibilities in microseconds. Ships exited faster than light travel with mathematical precision, or they tore themselves apart. What happened above the moon of Carthan 4 followed none of those rules. There was no hyperspace signature. No blue-white tunnel collapsing into real space. No warning blip on rebel sensors beyond a single impossible spike. Energy without mass. Velocity without origin. Then something fell out of nothingness, trailing fire and screaming metal, tumbling end over end like the galaxy itself had flinched. The object slammed into Carthan IV's upper atmosphere and burned. Below, a Rebel Alliance extraction team froze mid-operation. Blaster fire echoed through the skeletal ruins of an abandoned refinery, red bolts snapping past Durasteel pillars as stormtroopers advanced in disciplined formation. The rebels had seconds, maybe less, before Imperial reinforcements sealed the site. Then the sky tore open. A flaming shape streaked overhead, hit the desert flats beyond the refinery, and detonated in a plume of sand, shattered rock, and something that sounded suspiciously like profanity carried on the wind. The stormtroopers hesitated. The rebels stared. Rebel Sergeant Nira Voss activated her macro binoculars, hands shaking despite herself. "Tell me I'm hallucinating." Her spotter lowered his scope slowly. That was a man. Another explosion rippled across the flats. A second later, a figure stood up from the crater. Red and black armor. Twin katanas crossed on his back. Smoke pouring off him in lazy spirals. One arm hung at an angle arms were not meant to hang, but even as they watched, it snapped back into place with a wet, audible crunch. The man brushed sand off his mask. "Okay," the stranger shouted to the empty desert, voice amplified by his mask speakers. "Either I overshot the portal again, or I just died and woke up in the weirdest afterlife since the one with the talking raccoon." A stormtrooper fired. The blaster bolt caught the stranger square in the chest, hurling him backward into the crater. Silence followed, thick, stunned silence, broken only by the wind and the hum of Imperial armor servos. Then a hand rose from the crater. The stranger climbed out, chest plate scorched, smoking, and very much intact. "Oh, come on," he called, pointing at the trooper. "Center mass? That's just rude. At least try for the head." The rebels didn't move. The stormtroopers did. Blaster fire erupted in a red storm. The stranger moved, fast, erratic, wrong. He sprinted toward the troopers, zigzagging as bolts punched through his limbs, torso, neck. Every hit staggered him. None stopped him. He drew a pistol mid-run and fired without aiming. A trooper went down. Then another. He slid through the sand, came up inside their formation, and the desert became chaos. The stranger laughed. Not a battle cry. Not a scream. A laugh, unhinged, delighted, threaded with pain and something else the rebels couldn't name. By the time the last stormtrooper fell, the man stood alone amid smoking armor and scattered blaster rifles, riddled with holes that were already closing. Deadpool tilted his head, listening. Somewhere far above, TIE fighters screamed across the sky. "Oh good," he muttered. "Local air support. Love a welcoming committee." He turned toward the refinery ruins, and directly toward the rebel extraction team, frozen in disbelief. Several rebels raised their blasters. Deadpool raised both hands. "Okay, time out. Before anyone shoots me again, and trust me, you're not going to enjoy the return on that investment. Can someone tell me why the Nazis upgraded their outfits and started hiring bucketheads?" No one answered. Sergeant Voss stepped forward, blaster steady. "Identify yourself." Deadpool looked at her, then at the refinery, then at the twin suns hanging low in the sky. Oh wow," he said softly. "This is either a copyright nightmare, or I finally broke reality for good." He tapped his mask. "Name's Deadpool. Wade Wilson. Mercenary. Occasional hero. Frequent problem. And judging by the decor," he gestured at the stormtrooper corpses, "not your enemy. Yet." A rebel lieutenant whispered. "He survived direct blaster hits." Another murmured, "Jedi." Deadpool snorted. "Wow. Harsh. I wear red, not beige. Before anyone could respond, the ground shuddered. Imperial transports roared overhead, dropping toward the refinery. Searchlights stabbed down through dust and smoke. Orders barked over loudspeakers. The extraction window was gone. Sergeant Voss swore. She looked at Deadpool again, this impossible, regenerating lunatic who had just wiped out a stormtrooper squad alone. "Can you fight?" she demanded. Deadpool glanced at the sky, then back at her. "Define fight. Can you slow them down?" He considered it, then shrugged. I was planning to find a bar and emotionally process whatever this is." He gestured at the sky again. "But sure. I've got like 12 minutes before the existential dread kicks in." Voss didn't trust him, but she trusted Imperial reinforcements even less. "Cover our withdrawal," she said. "If you betray us." Deadpool interrupted, already walking toward the incoming transports. "You'll shoot me?" Yeah. Add it to the list." As blaster fire erupted again, Deadpool drew both pistols, rolled his shoulders, and charged the Empire with manic enthusiasm. Above them, unseen and unfelt, the Force rippled, confused, disturbed, unable to grasp the anomaly that had just entered the war. And somewhere in the galaxy, Imperial sensors flagged a data point that should not exist. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Rebel Alliance escaped Carthan for that night. They left behind burning wreckage, unanswered questions, and one immortal mercenary laughing at the darkness as the Empire closed in. The Rebel transport Ashfall jumped to hyperspace, with its hull screaming in protest. Inside the cramped hold, no one spoke. Blaster scorch marks still smoked along the walls. Med droids hovered over wounded commandos, their repulsor lifts whining softly as they worked. The smell of burned plastoid blood and ozone clung to everything, a familiar perfume of rebel survival. And sitting on a cargo crate in the center of it all, legs dangling casually, was the reason command would absolutely lose its mind. Deadpool hummed to himself. It was an off-key tune, punctuated by the occasional ow as his body finished knitting itself back together. A hole through his thigh sealed with a wet shiver. Charred fabric reformed. The scorch mark on his mask faded like it had never existed. Several rebels watched him with naked fear, others with awe. One with a blaster trained directly between his eyes. Sergeant Nira Voss hadn't lowered her weapon since they'd sealed the hatch. "Don't take this personally," she said. "I just don't trust things that walk away from blaster fire." Deadpool glanced down at her rifle, then back up. "That's fair. For what it's worth, I don't trust things that wear matching uniforms and still lose firefights." No one laughed. Deadpool sighed. Tough crowd. The lieutenant, Jax Marrow, Rebel Intelligence, thin and sharp-eyed, stepped forward. "You killed 37 Imperial troops in under 4 minutes. Deadpool brightened. "Oh good, you were counting. I was worried I lost my rhythm." "You did it without a squad, without cover, without force abilities." Deadpool tilted his head. "Okay, first, rude assumption. Second, what's the force? Is that like Wi-Fi?" That got a reaction. A few murmurs. One of the wounded rebels crossed himself reflexively, like he'd heard a profanity. Marrow's gaze hardened. "You don't sense it. You don't register." Deadpool leaned back on his hands. "Buddy, I barely register on my own dating apps." The ship lurched as it cleared hyperspace, dropping them into the shadow of a drifting debris field. Standard Rebel evasive maneuver. The engines quieted to a low, nervous hum. This was the part where things usually stabilized. They didn't. An alarm chirped. "Unknown biosignature fluctuation," the ship's medical system announced. "Source, cargo bay." Several rebels flinched. Deadpool raised a finger. "In my defense, I did just regenerate from like 17 fatal wounds. That's gonna throw off your Fitbit." Voss stepped closer, close enough now to smell the faint metallic tang that clung to him. "What are you?" Deadpool looked at her for a long moment. When he answered, the humor dimmed, just a fraction. "Unkillable," he said. "Annoying. Occasionally useful." frequently unstable. Take your pick. Marrow exchanged a glance with Voss. Command is going to ask if we can use him. Deadpool perked up. Ooh, am I being weaponized? Because I have opinions about uniforms. And they're going to ask, Marrow continued, what happens if the Empire gets him first? That sobered the room. Deadpool noticed. Oh. He scratched the back of his head. Yeah, that's not great. Your space Nazis seem real big on experimentation. Voss lowered her blaster. Just slightly. You could be an Imperial bioweapon. Deadpool snorted. Please. If they made me, I'd have better dental. Silence stretched. Finally, Voss spoke. Why did you help us? Deadpool opened his mouth. Closed it. For a heartbeat, the mask's white lenses dimmed. Because, he said slowly, the guys in white were shooting first. And you were running. He shrugged. I've been the one running, before. Marrow studied him like a puzzle that didn't fit in any box he had. You don't care about our cause. Deadpool considered that. I care about not letting bullies win. Beyond that, jury's out. That was the problem. The Rebel Alliance survived on belief. On symbols. On the idea that they were better than the Empire. Deadpool was none of those things. A chime echoed through the hold as a hollow projector flickered to life. Mon Mothma's emblem rotated slowly, command channel authorization. Marrow grimaced. Too late. The hologram resolved into the calm, composed figure of General Hera Syndulla. Leku draped over her shoulders, eyes sharp with exhaustion. Report, she said. Voss stepped forward. Extraction successful. Heavy Imperial resistance. And an anomaly. Deadpool waved. Hi. Love the head tails. Very aerodynamic. Several rebels winced. Hera's eyes narrowed. Identify yourself. Deadpool, he said cheerfully. Short-term guest. Long-term problem. Hera studied him. Then the data scrolling beside her, biometrics, battle footage, casualty projections. You are not force-sensitive, she said. Nope. You survived injuries that should have killed you. Repeatedly. You disrupted an Imperial operation and enabled a full rebel withdrawal. Team effort, Deadpool said. Mostly me. Hera exhaled slowly. You are dangerous. Deadpool nodded. Correct. And unpredictable. Also correct. And you refuse to swear allegiance. Deadpool spread his hands. I barely swear allegiance to my landlord. Hera's gaze hardened. Then you are a liability. The word landed heavier than blaster fire. Deadpool leaned forward, elbows on his knees. General, with respect, and I say that loosely, your people were about to get turned into modern art back there. Liability or not, I changed the math. He wasn't wrong. That made it worse. Hera muted her channel briefly. Voss caught a glimpse of something rare in the general's eyes. Doubt. When the channel reopened, Hera spoke carefully. You will remain under guard. You will not leave this ship. And you will not engage in further operations without authorization. Deadpool raised an eyebrow. So probation? Containment, Hera corrected. Deadpool smiled beneath the mask. Oh, he said softly. This is going to end badly. In the depths of hyperspace, far from rebel eyes, Imperial intelligence finished compiling its report. Subject: anomalous combatant classification. Non-force, non-mechanical, immortal, provisional, threat assessment, escalating. And somewhere aboard a star destroyer, an Inquisitor paused mid-meditation, frowning as the Force slipped around a shape it could not see. The Rebel Alliance had contingency plans for everything. Boarding actions, Imperial pursuit, spy infiltration, even Jedi-related complications, ancient, mostly theoretical files gathering dust in Alliance archives. There was no protocol for this. Deadpool paced the detention compartment like a bored Nexus in a cage. The room wasn't a cell, not officially, no energy bars, no binders, but it might as well have been. 2 armed guards stood outside at all times. Surveillance cams tracked his every move. The door only opened with dual authorization. He hated it. So, Deadpool said loudly, lying flat on the deck plating and staring up at the ceiling. How long before one of you realizes this is a terrible idea and either lets me help or spaces me? Neither guard responded. Deadpool sighed. Strong silent types. Love that for you. Hours passed. Or minutes. Hyperspace messed with his sense of time, and Deadpool was already bad at that on a good day. He tried push-ups. The floor cracked. He tried juggling thermal detonators he definitely wasn't supposed to have. They took those away. Eventually, the door hissed open. Sergeant Voss stepped in, blaster holstered but ready. Behind her came Lieutenant Marrow, datapad in hand, expression unreadable. Deadpool sat up. The bad cop, worst cop routine. We're running out of time, Marrow said without preamble. Imperial patrols are converging on our last 3 supply routes. Deadpool blinked. Wow, that escalated quickly. They're responding to you, Voss said. Your attack pattern. Your body count. You broke their predictive models. Deadpool grinned. You're welcome. Marrow tapped his datapad. A hollow projection sprang to life. Imperial fleet movements, tightening like a noose. We're evacuating a munitions cache on Ordvaxel. Stealth extraction. Minimal engagement. Voss crossed her arms. We don't need a massacre. Deadpool leaned forward. Good news. I'm very good at targeted mayhem. Silence. Marrow hesitated, then said the thing none of them wanted to admit. We need you. Deadpool's grin softened into something more dangerous, pleased, but watchful. Say that again, but slower. We need you, Marrow repeated. On our terms. Deadpool stood, rolling his shoulders. See, there's the problem. I don't do terms. I do mutual bad decisions. Voss met his gaze. This is not a joke. Deadpool's voice dropped, humor thinning. Neither is dying in a war you're already losing. That landed. Minutes later, the ashfall dropped out of hyperspace above Ordvaxel, a gray, storm-choked world wrapped in electromagnetic interference. Imperial listening posts dotted the surface. TIE patrols swept the clouds like sharks. Deadpool crouched inside a drop pod with 3 rebel commandos, blades strapped, guns loaded, hearts pounding. One of them, young Freckles, hands shaking, whispered. He doesn't even look scared. Deadpool leaned over. Buddy, I'm terrified. I just cope loudly. The pod launched. Atmosphere screamed past them. Deadpool whooped as turbulence rattled the hull. 10 credits says I stick the landing, he said. They did not stick the landing. The pod slammed into a ravine, cracking open like an egg. Deadpool burst out first, already firing, blasters barking in the storm. Stormtroopers went down before they understood what was happening. Deadpool moved like chaos given muscle. He used blaster fire to herd enemies into choke points, then closed the distance with blades flashing. Every wound slowed him. Pain registered, body reacted. But nothing stopped him. A trooper impaled him through the abdomen. Deadpool stabbed him back and whispered, You're going to want to call that in. The rebels followed, stunned despite themselves. This wasn't Jedi precision. It wasn't Mandalorian discipline. It was raw, efficient violence wrapped in sarcasm. They reached the cache entrance, sealed, guarded by an E-web emplacement. Deadpool didn't wait. He sprinted straight at it. The cannon opened fire. The impact shredded him, limbs torn, torso blown apart. His body slammed into the mud in pieces. The rebels froze. Then the pieces moved. Flesh crawled. Bone snapped back together. Deadpool rose, coughing, half-formed, laughing through blood. Okay, he wheezed. That one stung. He hurled a thermal detonator with his remaining arm. The emplacement vanished in fire. Inside the cache, as rebels loaded munitions, Deadpool leaned against a crate, regenerating slowly this time. His healing factor worked, but the sheer volume of damage had taxed it. Pain lingered longer. Movement felt heavier. Marrow noticed. You're slowing. Deadpool shrugged. Yeah. Turns out this galaxy has opinions about how often I get vaporized. Outside, TIE engines screamed closer. Voss made a call. Extraction now. Deadpool straightened. Go. I'll hold them. That's not the plan, Marrow snapped. Deadpool smiled behind the mask. Plans change. He stepped back into the storm as Imperial troops poured in. Blaster fire lit the ravine. Deadpool fought, fell, rose, fought again, buying seconds with blood and jokes and sheer refusal to die. When the rebel shuttle finally lifted off, Deadpool stood alone amid wreckage, breathing hard, body still knitting together. A shadow fell over him. Not from above. From within. Deadpool felt it then, a pressure, cold and sharp, sliding across his thoughts. Not pain. Not fear. Attention. Somewhere far away, something ancient and furious had noticed him. He looked up at the stormy sky. Oh. Back aboard the shuttle, the rebels watched Ordvaxel burn behind them. They had won, and they had crossed a line they could never uncross. Deadpool collapsed onto a crate as the shuttle jumped to hyperspace, laughing weakly. "See," he muttered. "Team player." In the dark between stars, an Inquisitor opened his eyes. For the first time since taking the mantle, the Force had failed to answer him. Imperial intelligence did not believe in anomalies. It believed in variables. Every threat could be quantified, every battlefield modeled, every insurgent cell reduced to probability curves and attrition forecasts. Victory was a matter of patience, surveillance, and overwhelming force. Deadpool broke all three. The holodeck aboard the Star Destroyer relentless flickered with red overlays, failed projections, collapsed predictive models, casualty ratios that made no sense. Officers shifted uneasily as data scrolled faster than it could be processed. Admiral Krennic, thin, precise, and furious, stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "Explain," he said quietly. An analyst swallowed. "Sir, the subject does not behave according to fear-response norms. He advances under lethal fire. He ignores tactical disadvantages. He does not retreat when wounded." "Plenty of fools do that," Krennic snapped. "Yes, sir. But fools die." The analyst tapped the console. Footage replayed. Deadpool regenerating under E-web fire, laughing as limbs reformed, charging through kill zones that should have erased him from existence. "He does not," the analyst finished. Silence settled over the bridge. Then a colder presence made itself known. The air seemed to thicken. Officers stiffened instinctively as black-robed figures emerged from the turbolift. At their center walked the Inquisitor, tall, pale, eyes like voids cut into a skull. The Seventh Sister inclined her head. "Admiral." Krennic turned. "You felt it." "I felt nothing," she replied, and there was irritation in her voice. "Which is worse?" She gestured at the holodeck. "This being exists outside the Force's predictive flow. He is noisy in action, yet silent in perception." Krennic frowned. "Explain." "When Jedi move, the Force ripples. When Sith strike, the dark side sings." Her fingers tightened. "This one leaves static, like screaming into a void." "Can you track him?" Her jaw clenched. "Only through conventional means. Sensors. Reports. Eyewitnesses." She looked displeased. "That is unacceptable." Orders followed swiftly. Deadpool became priority black. Not for capture. For study. The Rebel Alliance felt the shift almost immediately. Imperial patrols grew sharper, more aggressive. Trap systems appeared along hyperspace routes thought safe. Rebel cells went dark without warning. Something was coordinating with frightening precision. And at the center of it all was the same name, whispered with awe and dread. Deadpool. He lounged in the Ashfall's cargo bay, sharpening one of his katanas against a crate labeled "Do Not Open." Voss stood nearby, arms crossed, watching him with thinly veiled concern. "You're enjoying this," she said. Deadpool glanced up. "Define enjoying." "You're smiling." He shrugged. "I smile when I'm stressed. Or dying. Or both." Marrow entered, datapad glowing. "Imperial bounty notices are circulating." Deadpool perked up. "Who? How much am I worth?" Marrow hesitated. "Enough." Deadpool whistled. "Finally. Validation." Voss didn't laugh. "This isn't funny. They're adjusting their tactics because of you." Deadpool sheathed his blade. "Good. Means I'm effective." "It means we're exposed," Marrow shot back. "You don't belong in a resistance movement built on secrecy." Deadpool tilted his head. "Funny. You keep using me." That hit harder than intended. Silence stretched until Voss spoke. The Inquisitors are involved now. Deadpool's humor dimmed again, just a notch. Ah. Cloak and Scythe crowd. Knew they'd show up eventually. You've faced them? Marrow asked. Not these ones, Deadpool said. But I've met the type. Big on monologues. Very stabby. He hopped down from the crate. Which means you need to decide. Voss frowned. Decide what? Whether I'm a weapon, Deadpool said, or a person. Marrow looked away. The answer was already written in their orders. The ambush came on Rylotha's outer moon. A simple resupply. Low risk. No Imperial presence detected. Deadpool smelled at the moment they dropped out of hyperspace. Yeah, he muttered, flexing his fingers. This is a trap. Too late. Interdictor fields flared. Gravity wells snapped shut like jaws. TIE fighters poured from hyperspace, swarming the rebel convoy. And then the Inquisitor arrived. Her shuttle descended silently, cutting through blaster fire untouched. The ramp lowered, and she stepped onto the scorched landing pad, lightsaber igniting with a predatory hiss. Deadpool felt it then. Pressure. Not on his body, on his regeneration. Like something was interfering with the rhythm of his healing, stretching the pain out, making every wound linger longer than it should. Oh, he breathed. That's new. The seventh sister regarded him with open curiosity. You are an offense, she said. To the Force. To order. Deadpool waved. Hi. Loved the aesthetic. Very space goth. She attacked without warning. Her blade moved like lightning. Deadpool barely blocked, sparks exploding as metal met plasma. The impact hurled him backward, smoking, flesh burning where the saber grazed him. He screamed, not in fear but pain. The rebels fired. She deflected every bolt without looking. Deadpool rolled to his feet, body struggling to keep up. His healing worked, but slower. Each cut burned deeper, stayed longer. You're cheating, he gasped. The Inquisitor smiled. No, I am correcting you. They clashed again. Deadpool adapted, using terrain, throwing debris, firing point blank. He fought dirty, unpredictable, laughing even as he burned. But the Force guided her. She impaled him through the chest and lifted him off the ground. For a moment, Deadpool hung there, twitching, breath hitching. Then he grabbed her wrist. You know, he said weakly, most people buy me dinner first. He detonated a charge between them. The blast tore them apart. Deadpool hit the ground in pieces again, regeneration sluggish, screaming as nerves reknit. The Inquisitor rose from the smoke, damaged but whole. You cannot kill me, Deadpool panted. No, she agreed, stepping closer. But I can break you. Rebel commandos dragged Deadpool back toward the ship as cover fire raged. Voss shouted orders, panic threading her voice. The ashfall escaped, but barely. Deadpool lay on the deck afterward, staring at the ceiling, pain still crawling through him long after his wounds closed. That, he whispered, was unpleasant. Voss knelt beside him. You're not invincible. Deadpool turned his head to look at her. I never said I was. Somewhere in the void, the seventh sister watched the stars streak past and smiled. The Empire had found its answer. Not fear. Not obedience. Pain. Pain had a way of clarifying things. Deadpool lay on the deck of the Ashfall's infirmary, staring at a crack in the overhead panel that looked vaguely like a dancing banda. His body was whole again, no missing limbs, no smoking wounds. But the echo of the Inquisitor's lightsaber still crawled through his nerves. His healing factor had closed the damage. It hadn't erased the memory. A medical droid hovered nearby, its sensors clicking in confusion. Subject exhibits full cellular regeneration, it reported. However, neurological stress indicators remain elevated beyond baseline. Deadpool snorted weakly. Congrats, Tin Can. You discovered trauma. Across the infirmary, Sergeant Voss stood with her arms folded, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. She hadn't left since they jumped to hyperspace. Neither had Marrow, who leaned against the bulkhead, datapad forgotten in his hand. You didn't tell us the Force could do that, Voss said quietly. Deadpool turned his head toward her. You didn't ask. That thing, she hurt you. Yep. in ways blasters couldn't. Deadpool's lenses dimmed slightly. Welcome to magic swords and space monks. Marrow finally spoke. You're a liability. Deadpool laughed. It came out sharp, brittle. You already said that. And you're still here, Marrow continued. Imperial pressure is increasing. They're adapting around you. Deadpool pushed himself up on his elbows, wincing as phantom pain flared. Let me guess. You're wondering if keeping me around is worth the cost. Voss looked away. That was answer enough. Deadpool sighed and swung his legs off the table. Okay, cards on the table. Your cloaked friend out there? She can't kill me, but she can make every second hurt. And if she figures out how to contain me, Marrow's jaw tightened. The Empire would dissect you. Yup, very thoroughly, probably while asking philosophical questions. Silence settled again, heavy as hyperspace. Voss broke it. So what do we do? Deadpool stood slowly, testing his balance. His body responded, but it felt thicker. Like the galaxy itself resisted him now. You stop pretending I'm a symbol, he said. And I stop pretending I care about your speeches. Marrow frowned. Meaning, I don't belong in your command structure. I don't do chains of command. And every time you deploy me, you light up Imperial sensors like a life day tree. Voss exhaled. You're suggesting. I go independent, Deadpool finished. No more riding your ships. No more blowing up your supply ops. I hit the Empire where I choose. Marrow stared. That makes you a rogue element. Deadpool grinned. Now you're getting it. The break was not clean. Rebel Command argued for hours. Some wanted Deadpool gone immediately. Too dangerous, too visible, too morally corrosive. Others argued he was the single most effective anti-Imperial asset they had encountered since the destruction of the Death Star. Mon Mothma listened to every argument in silence. Finally, she spoke. The rebellion is not a weapon, she said. It is a promise. Her gaze shifted to Deadpool's hologram. And you are not built for promises. Deadpool gave a mock bow. Guilty. You will not act in our name, Mon Mothma continued. But neither will we stop you. A pause. Then, there are worlds the Alliance cannot touch. Criminal syndicates we cannot negotiate with. Jobs that would destroy our credibility. Deadpool's lenses brightened. Oh, you want plausible deniability. I want the Empire distracted, she replied calmly. Deadpool tapped his chin. I always wanted to be a strategic nuisance. The arrangement was unofficial, unrecorded, uncomfortable, perfect. Deadpool left the ashfall on a stolen freighter with mismatched engines, a bad navicomputer, and a cargo hold full of weapons the rebels could no longer account for. His destination was not a rebel base. It was NAR Shada. The smuggler's moon greeted him with neon glare and the smell of ozone, grease, and desperation. Towers climbed endlessly upward, layered with crime and commerce. Speeders screamed through traffic lanes like suicidal monarchs. Deadpool stepped onto the Duracrete and inhaled deeply. Home. The underworld loved him instantly. Not because he was funny, because he was profitable. Hut cartels took notice when entire Imperial patrols vanished. Black sun brokers whispered when bounties came back unclaimed because the hunter had ended up in pieces. The Bounty Hunters Guild updated its internal advisories with a simple note. Do not engage alone. Deadpool leaned into it. He sabotaged Imperial spice seizures, not to free the spice, but to reroute it into black markets that starved Imperial funding streams. He hijacked convoy schedules and sold them to multiple syndicates at once, letting criminals fight each other while the Empire bled credits. He didn't liberate planets. He destabilized them, and the Empire hated him for it. The Force noticed something else. On a forgotten asteroid temple, older than the Empire, older than the Jedi, the Seventh Sister knelt in meditation. Her armor was scorched, her pride wounded. He adapts, she said to the darkness. He does not submit. A presence stirred. Then do not seek to dominate him. A voice whispered through the stone. Break what he protects. The Inquisitor's eyes opened slowly. His allies. Deadpool felt it when it happened. Not through the Force. Through guilt. A rebel cell on Braca went silent. An extraction he'd promised to cover turned into a massacre when Imperials arrived early. Using intel traced back through underworld channels Deadpool himself had disturbed. He stood on a NAR-shot balcony, watching traffic blur beneath him, hands shaking. "Well," he muttered, "that's new." For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Deadpool didn't laugh. Because for all his chaos, the war had rules. And he had just broken one that mattered. Deadpool didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of a NAR-shot high-rise, boots dangling over 1,000 meters of bad decisions, watching traffic streams blur into neon veins below. Speeders screamed past. Sirens wailed somewhere distant. The smuggler's moon never paused, never reflected, never mourned. That was usually why he liked places like this. Tonight, it just felt loud. The datapad in his hand kept replaying the same fragment of intercepted Imperial chatter. Grainy, distorted, still unmistakable. Rebel cell neutralized. No survivors. Intelligence confirmed via syndicate leak. Deadpool crushed the pad in his grip. Duraplast shattered. Sparks hissed, then died. "Well," he said to no one, "that's officially on me." On Earth, on his Earth, Deadpool had killed for money, for survival, for revenge, sometimes just because the alternative was thinking too hard. But this war? This wasn't some gang dispute or mercenary contract. These people believed in something. And because of him, they were dead. He slid off the ledge and dropped. The fall should have killed him. It didn't. He hit an awning halfway down, bone snapping, then bounced, rolled, and hit the street in a spray of pain and profanity. Civilians scattered, shouting. Someone screamed. Deadpool lay there for a second, staring up at the endless city. "Okay," he muttered. "Spiral later. Do something now." The Empire made its move 3 days later. Not with fleets. With precision. Imperial Security Bureau raids hit underworld hubs across the Outer Rim. NAR Shada, Ord Mantell, Corellia's shadow docks. Syndicate leaders disappeared. Safe houses burned. Bounty brokers turned up dead with Imperial calling cards etched into their chests. And every transmission carried the same quiet message. Chaos has consequences. Deadpool felt the net tightening. Not around him. Around everyone else. A Bothan slicer he'd paid in advance went missing. A Rodian arms dealer refused to meet. Even the Hutts grew cautious, their interest cooling when Imperial auditors started asking inconvenient questions. Deadpool sat in the cockpit of his stolen freighter, helmet off, mask tossed aside, staring at hyperspace coordinates he wasn't sure he wanted to jump to. He wanted to be independent, he told his reflection in the viewport. "Congrats. You did it." The reflection didn't smile back. A ping broke the silence. Encrypted. Old rebel cipher. One-time use. Deadpool frowned. That's not supposed to work anymore. He opened it. Sergeant Nira Voss appeared as a flickering hologram. Face hard, eyes furious. "You idiot," she said immediately. Deadpool winced. "Hey, Nira. Missed you too. You told us you'd stay off our lanes." "I did," he said. "Mostly. A cell on Braca is dead because Imperial intelligence traced syndicate interference back to you." Deadpool closed his eyes. "I know." Silence crackled between them. Then Voss spoke again, quieter. "They're using you now. Baiting traps. Forcing you to choose who dies." Deadpool swallowed. "Yeah, that's their move." "And what are you going to do?" she demanded. Deadpool opened his eyes, gaze steady now. "I'm going to stop running sideways." The plan was suicidal, which, to be fair, narrowed things down very little. Deadpool didn't strike an Imperial convoy. He didn't hit a garrison. He didn't ambush a patrol. He walked straight into an Imperial-controlled system. Raxus Prime. A junk world. Graveyard of starships. Mountains of twisted metal and half-buried hulls from wars long past. Beneath its rusted surface lay something far more valuable than scrap. An ISB coordination node, quietly routing intelligence between sectors. The Empire thought it was secure. They were wrong. Deadpool landed his freighter openly, broadcasting a fake transponder with deliberate sloppiness. Stormtroopers intercepted him within minutes. He let them. Hands raised. Weapons holstered. Mask on. They bound him in energy cuffs tuned high enough to make even Wookiees scream. Deadpool hissed as they snapped shut. Oof. Okay. That's new. They dragged him through corridors lined with scrap-fused durasteel into a fortified command bunker buried beneath the junk fields. Imperial officers stared as he passed, some with curiosity, some with fear, and one with satisfaction. The seventh sister waited in the central chamber, lightsaber unlit, hands folded calmly before her. You came willingly, she said. Deadpool tilted his head. I had a bad feeling about ignoring you. She circled him slowly, studying every movement. You are inefficient. Your chaos bleeds into places you cannot control. Yeah, Deadpool said. I noticed. She stopped in front of him. You are not force-sensitive. Not machine. Not bound by destiny. Yet your actions ripple outward, disrupting carefully constructed order. Deadpool leaned forward as far as the cuffs allowed. You ever consider that maybe your order deserves disrupting? Her blade ignited. The pain was immediate. Not a strike, pressure. The force crushing inward, compressing nerves, slowing regeneration to a crawl. Deadpool screamed. The seventh sister leaned close. This galaxy does not bend for aberrations. Deadpool's laughter bubbled up through clenched teeth. Funny thing is, I'm not here to bend it. She frowned. Then why surrender? Deadpool looked up at her, mask lenses bright despite the agony. To get your attention. The explosion rocked the bunker. Not from outside. From below. Deadpool's cuffs detonated. Microcharges triggered by a dead man's signal synced to his heart rate. He tore free, flesh shredding, reforming even as he moved. At the same time, the scrap fields above Raxus Prime shifted. Entire wrecked hulls collapsed inward as hidden charges, planted weeks earlier during underworld raids, detonated in sequence. The junk world began eating itself. ISB data cores overloaded. Signal relays fried. The coordination node died screaming. Deadpool lunged for the seventh sister, not to kill, but to delay. They clashed in a storm of sparks and pain. Each saber strike burned deeper than before. His regeneration lagged seconds behind damage now, every hit stacking agony. You planned this, she hissed. Deadpool blocked barely. Yup. Turns out I'm better at long games than I thought. The bunker shook. Ceiling plates fell. Alarms wailed. This will not save them, she said. The Empire adapts. Deadpool grinned, blood leaking through his teeth. Good. Then adapt to this. He triggered the last charge. The bunker collapsed. Rebel cells across 3 sectors felt it within hours. Imperial response time slowed. Patrols missed rendezvous. Traps failed to close. The invisible hand coordinating crackdowns vanished overnight. The Empire didn't fall, but it stumbled. Deadpool crawled out of the wreckage days later, half regenerated, limping, body aching in ways it hadn't since his arrival in this galaxy. The seventh sister was gone. So was her certainty. Deadpool stood atop a mountain of scrap, staring out over a world slowly tearing itself apart. I'm not a hero, he said aloud, but I'm done being their weapon. Somewhere far away, Rebel Command received fragmented reports of Raxus Prime's collapse. Mon Mothma closed her eyes when she heard the name attached to it. Not relief. Recognition. The war had changed again. And this time, the change wasn't hope. It was defiance. The Empire didn't announce its anger. It never did. Instead, hyperspace lanes shifted. Patrol routes tightened. Bounties updated quietly across guild terminals, their numbers climbing without explanation. And at the very top of the list, no alias, no clarification, no legal framing, was a single line stamped in red. Priority, anomalous asset, termination authorized. Deadpool read it while floating upside down in zero-G, boots magnetized to the ceiling of a half-repaired rebel courier ship. Oof, he muttered. No fun nickname. That's how you know it's serious. Across the cargo bay, General Hera Syndulla folded her arms, Leku twitching in irritation. You collapsed an Imperial intelligence node, she said. Do you have any idea what that's done to sector stability? Deadpool rolled, dropped to the floor, and saluted. Ma'am, respectfully? Your enemies are confused, angry, and tripping over each other. That's called progress. That's called escalation, Hera Shapak. The Empire doesn't bleed quietly. No, Deadpool agreed. It bleeds systematically. The ship lurched as it dropped out of hyperspace into a dead zone, an empty stretch of space deliberately chosen to avoid Imperial sensors. Hera stared at him for a long moment. You didn't come here to brag. Deadpool's posture shifted. The jokes didn't stop, but they slowed like a weapon being lowered, not holstered. Nope. I came to offer terms. That got her attention. The Rebel Alliance had rules. Deadpool broke them by existing. He wasn't force-sensitive. He didn't believe in destiny. He refused to die properly. And worst of all, he didn't fear becoming a symbol. Which was exactly why some of them wanted him nowhere near the movement. In a dim briefing chamber aboard the Phoenix Nest, arguments erupted the moment Deadpool's proposal hit the table. He's unstable. He draws Imperial focus wherever he goes. He can't be controlled. Deadpool leaned back in his chair, feet on the table. Wow, this is like listening to my exes form a book club. Mon Mothma raised a hand. Silence fell. She studied Deadpool carefully. Not as a weapon, not as a liability, but as a variable. You're asking us to let you operate independently, she said, while benefiting indirectly from the chaos you create. Bingo, Deadpool said. Think of me as aggressive weather. And when civilians die in your storms, another senator demanded. Deadpool didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. Then I failed. Same as you do when the Empire retaliates. Difference is, I don't pretend my hands are clean. The room stayed silent. Finally, Mon Mothma spoke again. You won't receive Alliance resources. Deadpool shrugged. Didn't ask. You won't be protected if captured. He tapped his mask. Trust me, they won't enjoy it. And if you compromise a rebel operation, intentionally or otherwise, we cut all contact. Deadpool stood. Fair, he said. Because if I compromise you on purpose, I want you ready. That wasn't a threat. It was a warning. The Empire adapted fast. Within weeks, a new unit began appearing in combat reports. Stormtroopers who didn't break formation when Deadpool showed up. Commandos armed with ionized blades and rotating fire patterns designed to overwhelm regeneration. Droids, lots of droids, because droids didn't panic when he laughed while bleeding. Deadpool encountered them on Kessel first. The spice mines had erupted into open revolt after an Imperial crackdown turned brutal even by Imperial standards. Deadpool dropped into the chaos like a grenade with opinions. Blaster fire tore through him. He kept moving. An ion blade severed his arm. He beat the trooper to death with it. Hey, he shouted. That was my dominant hand. They fought smarter now. They burned bodies. They contained remains. They learned. Deadpool escaped, but barely. He regenerated slower that time. Pain lingered longer. Something inside him remembered the near-death. That's new, he muttered, stitching himself together in a stolen shuttle. Don't love that. The Force noticed him. Not like it did Jedi. Not like it did Sith. More like a splinter lodged where the current should flow smoothly. Luke Skywalker felt it during meditation. A pressure that didn't belong, a presence that refused alignment. Something's wrong, Luke said, eyes still closed. Obi-Wan's voice echoed faintly. The Force moves around him, not through him. Luke opened his eyes. Is he dangerous? A pause. Yes, Obi-Wan said, but not for the reason you think. The confrontation came without prophecy. No visions. No chosen moment. Just coincidence and violence. Deadpool dropped onto a mid-rim refueling station at the same time Luke Skywalker arrived chasing an Imperial courier. They recognized each other instantly. Luke ignited his lightsaber. Deadpool raised both hands. Okay, Space Farm Boy. Before we do the glowy stick versus immortal lunatic thing. Hi, big fan. Luke hesitated. You or him? Wow, Deadpool said. No nickname. Rough day. You endanger the balance, Luke said. Deadpool tilted his head. Buddy, your galaxy loves imbalance. I'm just loud about it. Imperial troops poured in before Luke could respond. What followed wasn't a duel. It was an improvised war. Luke moved with purpose, precision, faith. Deadpool moved with chaos, profanity, and a complete disregard for survivability. They fought back to back without planning it. When it ended, bodies littered the deck. Luke stared at Deadpool, breathing hard. You don't feel the force. Deadpool wiped blood from his mask. Yeah, I get that a lot. Then why fight? Luke asked. Why risk everything? Deadpool looked at the dead troopers. Because someone has to choose to fight without destiny backing them up, he said. Otherwise, this all becomes a story people hide behind. Luke didn't answer, but he didn't argue either. The Empire named its countermeasure shortly after. Project Null Crown. Not a superweapon. A doctrine. Deadpool's existence had forced them to reconsider something fundamental. What if rebellion wasn't fueled by hope, but by unpredictable resistance? Null Crown focused on containment, isolation, narrative control. They stopped chasing Deadpool directly. They targeted aftereffects. Worlds he destabilized were punished brutally. The message was clear. Chaos would be answered with suffering. Deadpool watched a city burn on a holofeed and didn't laugh. For the first time, he turned off the sound. Okay, he whispered. You win this round. Then he did something new. He coordinated. Not with Rebel Command, but with smugglers, slicers, defectors, and systems the Empire considered irrelevant. He didn't lead them. He infected them. Imperial doctrine unraveled slowly, like fabric caught on a nail. By the time the Empire realized what he'd done, it was too late. Deadpool wasn't a rogue element anymore. He was a pattern. And patterns were harder to kill than men. Somewhere deep within Imperial space, Darth Vader stood before a projection of failed containment zones. Explain, he commanded. An officer swallowed. He cannot be predicted, my lord. He does not respond to fear or power. Vader's fist clenched. Then he is not chaos, Vader said. He is defiance without faith. The room fell silent. Vader turned away. Prepare a direct response. The officer hesitated. Shall we deploy an Inquisitor? Vader paused. No, he said. Send something that does not believe it can lose. The war shifted again. And for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Deadpool smiled. The Empire's direct response arrived without warning. No fleets massing on scanners. No ominous broadcasts. No visible preparation. Just silence, thick, deliberate, wrong. Deadpool noticed it first on a backwater refueling platform in the Arcani sector. The usual chatter on underworld frequencies was gone. Smugglers weren't joking. Bounty boards hadn't updated. Even pirate channels, the loudest, messiest corners of the galaxy, had gone dark. He leaned back in the pilot's chair, boots on the console, fingers steepled behind his head. Well, he said to the empty cockpit, either everyone decided to meditate at the same time, or I'm about to get jumped. The ship's proximity alarm screamed. Not one contact. 6. They dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Sleek, matte black vessels with no visible insignia, their hulls absorbing sensor pings instead of reflecting them. Deadpool whistled. Oh, stealth fighters. Vader's pulling out the fancy toys. The ships didn't fire. They waited. Then his systems died. Power drained in a clean, surgical sweep. No overload. No damage. Just gone. Deadpool's ship drifted, helpless. Well played, he admitted. Rude, but well played. A tractor beam latched on. The facility wasn't on any chart. Deadpool knew, because he'd stolen most of them. They brought him to a station hidden inside a hollowed asteroid, its interior carved with brutal efficiency, no ornamentation, no banners, no ideology made visible. Just function. Stormtroopers escorted him through corridors lined with observation ports. Behind the transparasteel, figures moved. Humanoid, armored, wrong. They weren't clones. They weren't droids. They moved too precisely, too uniformly, like soldiers who'd had something shaved off their instincts and replaced with obedience. Deadpool leaned toward one of the troopers. Okay, real talk. Are you guys brainwashed, vat-grown, or just really into disciplined TikTok? No response. They brought him into a chamber that felt empty. Not physically, metaphysically. Deadpool's regeneration slowed the moment he crossed the threshold. Scratches stayed scratches. Bruises didn't fade. Oh no, he muttered. I hate rooms like this. A figure stepped forward from the shadows. Tall, broad, encased in dark armor with angular plating and a featureless helmet marked by a single crimson vertical line. Not Vader. Not an Inquisitor. Something else. I am Commander Krail, the figure said. You are designated Anomalous Asset 0. Deadpool clapped slowly. Catchy. Needs merch. You cannot regenerate here, Krail continued calmly. This station is shielded by null field emitters. Your cellular anomaly is suppressed. Deadpool tested it, dragged a blade across his palm. Blood welled. Didn't heal. He stared at it, then back up. Okay, that's mildly terrifying. Krail tilted his head. Fear acknowledged. Don't get cocky, Deadpool said. I still have knives. And personality. You misunderstand, Krail replied. We are not here to kill you. Deadpool blinked. Wait. What? We are here to end you. The difference landed like a cold weight in his chest. Project Null Crown wasn't about brute force. It was about erasure. They didn't interrogate Deadpool. They studied him. Ran him through simulations. Psychological stressors. Moral dilemmas presented on holoscreens. Worlds burning, rebels dying, choices made and unmade. Every reaction logged. Every joke cataloged. Every silence noted. They learned when he laughed. They learned when he didn't. You rely on unpredictability, Krail said during one session. But patterns emerge. Deadpool slouched in the restraint chair. Buddy, my therapist said the same thing. Then I stabbed him. You will not stab me, Krail said evenly. Deadpool tested the restraints. Didn't budge. Fair. Days blurred together. Or weeks. Time was meaningless without stars. They brought in operatives trained specifically against him. Fighters who mirrored his movements, anticipated his rhythms, punished his habits. He lost. Again. And again. Without regeneration, pain stacked. Bruises layered. Exhaustion crept in like a slow poison. You see, Krail said, without your anomaly, you are merely a man. Deadpool spat blood. Yeah. And? Krail stepped closer. Men break. Deadpool looked up at him, eyes sharp behind the mask. So do empires. Outside the null field, the galaxy reacted. Not with panic. With confusion. Deadpool's pattern vanished overnight. No sudden destabilizations. No loud massacres. No impossible survivals. The underworld noticed first. Then the rebels. Something's wrong, Hera said, staring at the latest reports. Imperial responses are cleaner. Leia Organa felt it too, an absence where pressure used to be. Luke felt it like a missing note in the Force. He's gone, Luke said quietly. Mon Mothma closed her eyes. Or he's been silenced. The Empire pressed its advantage. Project Null Crown units deployed quietly across the rim, neutralizing destabilized cells one by one. Not violently, efficiently. Hope didn't shatter. It thinned. Deadpool broke on the 43rd cycle. Not screaming. Not begging. Just stopping. He sat motionless in his cell, staring at nothing. Jokes dried up like blood in a vacuum. Krail observed from behind the transparasteel. This is the end, Krail said. Your defiance was never faith-based. It cannot survive isolation. Deadpool didn't look up. Hey, he said softly. Can I ask you something? Krail paused. Proceed. Do you believe in the Empire? A hesitation. Microseconds. Logged. I believe in order, Krail said. Belief is irrelevant. Deadpool smiled. Not wide. Not manic. Just tired. Yeah, he said. That's what I thought. He stood. Slowly. Painfully. And started laughing. Not loud. Not sharp. A quiet, broken chuckle that echoed too much in the null field chamber. Krail's hand drifted toward his weapon. Deadpool tapped the side of his head. "You see," he said, "you built this whole thing to shut me down physically. Took away the healing. Took away the chaos." He raised his head, eyes burning. "But you missed the part where I adapt." The alarm screamed. Not from within the station. From everywhere. Data floods surged through Imperial networks, smuggler relays, old Clone Wars backdoors, forgotten civilian infrastructure. Deadpool hadn't coordinated while free. He'd coordinated before capture. Dead drops. Timed releases. Fail-safes triggered by his disappearance. Chaos delayed. Null Crown assumes leadership decapitation ends resistance, Deadpool said. Restraints unlocking as doors slammed shut around them. That's adorable. Krail drew his weapon. Deadpool charged. Without regeneration, every blow mattered. Every hit hurt. But this time, Deadpool fought focused. No flourish. No showboating. Just intent. The null field generators began to fail, overloaded by cascading power reroutes triggered across the station. The room flickered. For half a second. Deadpool felt it. The regeneration roared back like a tide. He laughed, full and wild. "Oh, I missed you." Krail retreated, firing. Deadpool took the shots, kept coming. "You wanted to end me?" Deadpool snarled. "Congratulations. You taught me how." The station shook as rebel-sympathetic smugglers sabotaged supply lines, and defectors fed bad data into Imperial command. Project Null Crown fractured. Deadpool stood over Krail, blade at his throat. "Order's fragile," Deadpool said quietly. "It breaks the moment people stop believing it's inevitable." Krail stared up at him. "You are not hope." Deadpool nodded. "Never said I was." He stepped back and detonated the station's core. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a dying star. Deadpool drifted free in the wreckage, laughing, bleeding, healing, alive. The Empire had tried to erase him. Instead, they'd proven something far worse. Even without destiny, even without faith, Defiance could learn. And now, the war wasn't just about hope anymore. It was about what happened when the Empire realized. They couldn't control the story. And they couldn't kill the punchline. The aftermath of the Null Crown Station's destruction reverberated across 3 systems before the Empire even realized what had happened. For weeks, Imperial communications were a tangle of misdirected orders, failed supply lines, and phantom sightings of Deadpool slipping through patrols like a ghost of mischief incarnate. Every new report carried the same kernel of fear. The anomaly had returned, and he was unstoppable when unleashed. Deadpool, for his part, wasn't exactly subtle. He moved like a storm of one across the midrim, hopping from smuggler dens to abandoned refineries, always staying one step ahead. He left chaos in his wake, not with the cold precision of an Empire tactician, but with improvisation that no protocol could anticipate. When an Imperial reconnaissance squad stumbled across a hidden rebel enclave on Ord Mantell, they found Deadpool mid-conversation with a raw D and arms dealer, both of them laughing as blaster fire tore through the surrounding canyon. The squad didn't survive, but neither did the communications tower. Collateral damage, Deadpool muttered to no one in particular. It's an occupational hazard. Yet this time, the battle was no longer about hiding or surviving. It was about choice. Each new Imperial attempt to corner him revealed a lesson. The Empire could adapt, but Deadpool adapted faster. He began to see patterns in their tactics, predictable responses, hierarchical thinking, even a rigid sense of morality within command structures. The Null Crown Station had been the Empire's scalpel, designed to sever him from any ability to resist. But in failing, it had taught him more than months of random skirmishes ever could. It was on Ryloth that he finally encountered his first truly unavoidable confrontation. A fleet of star destroyers, silent but vast, had dropped out of hyperspace. Sensors screamed unknown mass, anomalous. Troops deployed to strategic choke points, and at the center of the formation was a new agent of the Empire. No helmet this time, no lightsaber, only a presence that radiated control, discipline, and lethal patience. Commander Krail had returned, backed by an elite contingent of Null Crown operatives trained to exploit the anomaly's weaknesses. Deadpool assessed the situation. Oh boy, Guess the Empire's rolling out the big guns. Not the fun kind, either. He surveyed the terrain, ravines, cliffs, abandoned Twi'lek villages, and scorched ground. Everything could be used. Every line of fire could be manipulated. Every distraction could become a weapon. He knew Krail wasn't here to talk. This was about finality, to end the anomaly once and for all. Krail's voice echoed across the battlefield. Deadpool, you are no longer an asset. You are a threat. Surrender. Deadpool raised a hand, twirling a blaster between his fingers. Sorry, I don't do surrender. That's like Rule 1 in the Deadpool handbook. Plus, it's rude. The Null Crown operatives advanced, calculating, synchronized. They moved in ways that mimicked Deadpool's own combat patterns from previous encounters, a living reflection of his techniques, stripped of flair and humor, entirely lethal. He grinned behind his mask. Well, imitation's the sincerest form of flattery, but you forgot the part where I improvise. The battle erupted. Blaster fire tore through the air, sending sparks from twisted metal and rock. Deadpool used the environment like a playground of carnage, swinging from wreckage beams, flipping over craters, bouncing between cliffs, firing his blasters with precision unmatched by his attackers' rigid tactics. Krail advanced with surgical grace, targeting openings Deadpool thought only he could exploit. Every hit landed, pain stacking, regeneration lagging, but Deadpool pressed on, laughing and taunting, making sure Krail knew he was aware of the game. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had become irrelevant, measured only in blaster shots, impacts, and the constant rhythm of pain and recovery. Deadpool noticed something strange. The Null Crown units were learning from each other. Each failed strike by one operative informed the next attack. Adaptive learning at a terrifying rate. The anomaly couldn't just brute force his destruction anymore. They were becoming a networked predator. It was at that moment Deadpool realized the fight wasn't just physical. It was philosophical. Krail and the Empire weren't trying to kill him for survival or vengeance. They were trying to prove a point. That even a being immune to prophecy, to destiny, to conventional understanding of the Force, could be contained by order, logic, and discipline. Deadpool wiped blood from his mask, letting it drip onto the scarred ground. You really want to teach me about control, he said aloud, his voice echoing across the valley. Cool. I love a good metaphorical lecture. It's just bad news. I don't take notes. He charged, not in the manic, flailing way he usually did. Not with jokes and acrobatics to distract himself from pain. He moved deliberately, efficiently, brutally. The Null Crown units responded faster than ever, intercepting, anticipating, countering. Every kill drained him, every injury slowed him, but he kept going because every strike, every choice was part of a pattern that only he could manipulate. And then Krail engaged him directly. Their duel was unlike anything Deadpool had faced. Krail mirrored Deadpool's unpredictability, not through instinct or improvisation, but through cold observation. Each blow, each dodge, each taunt met with precise countermeasures. Pain ripped through Deadpool's body as he was forced to adapt on the fly, learning new strategies in real time, drawing on instincts he didn't even know he had. You are impressive, Krail said, slashing, but predictable within chaos. That is where you fail. Deadpool's grin was bloodied. Predictable? Me? Buddy, I'm a walking, talking, exploding question mark. The Null Crown operatives faltered for a moment, distracted by their leader's duel with the anomaly. Deadpool seized the opportunity, pulling an improvised explosive from his belt and tossing it into the center of the formation. The blast threw units into disarray. Krail recoiled, furious, and advanced with renewed precision. You will not leave this battlefield alive. Deadpool didn't argue. He lunged, striking and dodging, adapting in a blur of movement that even Krail couldn't fully anticipate. They collided again and again, armor against flesh, blade against blade, each attack sending vibrations through the rocky terrain. Hours bled into chaos. Smoke, fire, and dust enveloped the battlefield. Deadpool felt his regeneration surge in bursts. As the null field interference fluctuated around the detonating explosives he had pre-planted across the valley. Every strike that should have killed him simply taught him something new. Finally, the tipping point came. Krail's formation faltered, not because Deadpool had overpowered them in a single strike, but because their network efficiency could not account for total improvisation combined with premeditated sabotage. The anomaly had learned faster than the system could adapt. Deadpool landed heavily, chest heaving, blade in hand. Krail stumbled. The Null Crown operatives froze, caught in the crossfire of chaos and collapse. Blood dripping into the dust. Here it is. He detonated the final charge, prepositioned explosives along the cliffside and into the asteroid field that supported the station's orbit. The ground shuddered. Hulls collapsed. The Null Crown fleet scrambled to avoid debris. Krail staggered, thrown off balance, as the entire field erupted around him. Deadpool fell to one knee, exhausted, scarred, battered. Pain rolled through him in waves, but for the first time in weeks, he laughed freely. The Empire hadn't lost. Not yet. But they had failed to kill him. And that was the beginning of a new kind of war. No longer just the rebels versus the Empire. Not just strategy versus strategy. Now it was chaos versus control. And Deadpool? He was the agent of chaos the galaxy had never expected. The galaxy smelled different after that battle. Not like smoke or burned starships or scorched sand. No, it smelled like uncertainty, like reality itself had cracked and spilled fragments of possibility into the void. Systems whispered rumors of a red-masked lunatic who defied destiny, who laughed in the face of the Empire, who could not die, who could not be predicted. The Rebel Alliance called him an asset, a wild card they couldn't control. Imperial officers called him a nightmare, the embodiment of every contingency plan they had ever ignored. And Deadpool? He called it Tuesday. He drifted aboard a commandeered freighter, looking at the stars with a reckless grin. Hyperspace lanes stretched like silver threads across the void, and somewhere out there, someone was plotting to contain him again. Someone always was. But for now he was free, bleeding and healing in equal measure, whole again, and armed with every lesson the Empire had inadvertently taught him. The Rebel Alliance had survived the Null Crown disaster, though their operations had shifted irrevocably. Supply chains adapted to decentralized control, intelligence units became unpredictable in new ways, and systems that had once relied on rigid coordination began to operate independently. Deadpool hadn't simply fought for survival. He had reshaped the rebellion's philosophy. Guerrilla warfare took on a new meaning. Improvisation, unpredictability, and audacity became just as valuable as firepower or strategic positioning. Hera Syndulla, Leia Organa, and Mon Mothma studied his influence warily, acknowledging that his methods, chaotic as they were, achieved results the Alliance could not have imagined. Yet Deadpool didn't take orders. He didn't align fully with the rebels. He was a wild element, a storm that refused to settle, a force of entropy, with a sharp tongue and sharper weapons. He operated independently, choosing when and where to intervene. Sometimes that meant saving a rebel outpost from annihilation. Sometimes it meant blowing up an Imperial supply depot for the sheer fun of it. And sometimes he just stood in a crater, bleeding, grinning, and thinking about tacos. The Empire, humiliated but relentless, regrouped. Star destroyers patrolled with new doctrine, and Krail was still alive, nursing a bruised ego and refining countermeasures. But Deadpool had learned something the Empire could not predict. Control was an illusion. The more they tried to anticipate his moves, the more opportunities he created to dismantle their carefully constructed order. On one of the Outer Rim fringe worlds, Deadpool staged a meeting, not with the rebels, not with Imperial defectors, not even with mercenaries. He met with Hutts. Black Sun representatives hovered nearby. Smugglers, slicers, and even former bounty hunters came, drawn by curiosity, greed, or the promise of chaos. Deadpool leaned casually against a shipping crate, blade sheathed but ready. "Here's the deal," he said. "I'm in your galaxy now. I break rules you think are unbreakable. I kill what can't die, or at least annoy to death. You can work with me, against me, or not at all. But if you cross me, your life insurance is going to look like Swiss cheese." The room went silent. No one laughed. No one moved. And that was the power Deadpool had discovered. Fear, unpredictability, and charisma all rolled into one ridiculously overpowered package. They left the freighter alive, not out of respect, but because they couldn't be sure of the consequences of killing him. Meanwhile, Deadpool learned something about himself he hadn't expected. This galaxy, messy, chaotic, alive, responded to him in ways his old universe never had. He wasn't just a mercenary or a killer. He was a catalyst. He had no prophecy, no Jedi training, no Sith teachings. He didn't even have a code. Yet everything he did had impact. Lives were saved, destroyed, and rewritten because he acted without allegiance to fate. He had become a variable the galaxy could not ignore. It wasn't perfect. Not even close. People still died. Systems still burned. The Empire still had reach, and Krail's intelligence network was rebuilding. But Deadpool had proven one thing indelibly. Chaos could not be contained. And sometimes, chaos could be a hero. His reputation spread. A legend in red and black. He became a whispered name in the cantinas of NAR Shada, in the corridors of rebel starships, and even in the clean halls of Imperial command centers. Deadpool, the man who laughed while bleeding, who joked while dying, who thrived in the unpredictability the galaxy had never accounted for, had arrived. And no force in the galaxy, no weapon, no doctrine could rewrite his story. As he drifted alone through hyperspace, Deadpool reflected on the absurdity of it all. A universe built on destiny, prophecy, and control now faced a single irreverent mercenary who defied all of it. He'd made friends, enemies, and moral ambiguities along the way. He'd challenged Jedi philosophy without ever touching the Force. He'd forced Sith order to adapt without ever embracing the dark side. He had shaped rebellions, toppled schemes, and survived attempts on his life that would have killed anyone else, sometimes just because he wanted to. "Yeah," he muttered, leaning back and letting the ship drift in zero-G. "This galaxy's weird. And I love it." Somewhere in the distance, an Imperial fleet detoured around a planet, still burning from Deadpool's previous interventions. Krail sat on a bridge, staring at the tactical holomap, clenched fists white under his gloves. "He cannot be defeated," Krail muttered to himself. "Not by us. Not by any doctrine." And he was right. Because Deadpool wasn't just alive. He was free. Free to act, free to disrupt, free to create chaos that no calculation could account for. The galaxy had no prophecy for him, no destiny to bind him, no master to define him. He was the anomaly, the agent of unpredictable change, the red-masked mercenary who refused to die, refused to follow rules, and refused to be anything other than exactly who he was. As the freighter hummed quietly through hyperspace, Deadpool smiled behind his mask. "This is my galaxy now," he said. "Well, some of it. Let's see how long before they write me into a legend. Or a warning. Or a crazy-ass holovid. Whatever. I'm ready for all of it. Let's go." He twirled his blade, cocked a blaster, and stared into the endless stars, thinking about the next system he'd crash, the next fight he'd provoke, and the next absurd moment of survival and mischief he'd create. The galaxy might have been vast, structured, and dominated by fear, order, and the Force. But now it had something else. Something unpredictable. Something irrepressible. Deadpool had arrived. And the Rebel Alliance, the Empire, the smugglers, the Hutts, the Jedi, and even the ghosts of Krail's Null Crown units all knew one truth. The galaxy would never be the same. Because sometimes chaos wasn't a mistake. Sometimes chaos was a force of nature. And Deadpool? He was the hurricane. Deadpool's arrival in the Star Wars galaxy changed everything. The Empire's doctrine, the Rebel Alliance's strategy, and even the Jedi's understanding of the Force were challenged by a being who operated without prophecy, faith, or fear. Where the galaxy relied on order, destiny, and meticulous planning, Deadpool thrived on unpredictability, improvisation, and sheer audacity. He reshaped conflicts, disrupted expectations, and forced every faction to reconsider the limits of their control. Yet he was more than a weapon. Deadpool's presence highlighted the moral ambiguity of war, the fragility of doctrine, and the power of individual agency in a galaxy dominated by sweeping ideologies. He didn't choose sides fully, and he refused to submit to authority, proving that sometimes defiance itself could be a force more potent than lightsabers, fleets, or the dark side. In the end, Deadpool remained an enigma, part hero, part menace, all chaos. His legend would echo across star systems, a reminder that the galaxy's rules were not immutable, and that even in the vast, structured universe of the Force, one irreverent outsider could redefine the course of history.